Stories and Documentary Network. Welcome, dear viewers, to a journey shrouded in the mists of time. A journey into the heart of one of history's most captivating civilizations. I invite you to set sail with us as we embark on an exploration of the Vikings, a people whose story is etched in the annals of courage, conquest, and culture. The Vikings, a name that conjures images of fearless voyagers, intrepid explorers, and indomitable warriors. Today, we unlock the gates to their world, a world where the sea was both their cradle and their kingdom. Picture, if you will, a realm where the call of the wild was answered by those who dared to dream beyond the horizon. These were not mere mortals. They were Vikings, masters of the sea, builders of empires, and custodians of a saga that would resonate through the ages. To understand the Vikings is to unearth the tales of a people shaped by the untamed landscapes of Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. Bound by the North Sea, the Baltic Sea, and the Atlantic Ocean, their saga unfolded amidst fjords and forests, in a realm where every gust of wind carried the whispers of destiny. Originally hailing from the diverse regions of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, the Vikings were a group of Scandinavian seafarers who, over time, saw involvement from various nationalities. Their raids and subsequent settlements left a profound impact on European cultures, reaching as far as the Mediterranean regions between approximately 790 and 1100 before the Common Era. It's essential to note that while all Vikings were Scandinavian, not all Scandinavians were Vikings. The term Viking specifically referred to individuals who ventured onto the seas with the aim of acquiring wealth through raids in foreign lands. This term was predominantly employed by English writers and wasn't universally embraced by other cultures. The majority of Scandinavians did not engage in Viking activities. Those who participated in trade with other cultures were recognized as Northmen, Norsemen, or by other terms reflecting their origin. Commencing in 793 before the Common Era and spanning the subsequent 3 centuries, the Vikings embarked on a series of raids along coastal and inland regions in Europe, leaving an indelible mark on the historical landscape. Beyond their martial endeavors, they engaged in extensive trade networks that extended as far as the Byzantine Empire in the east. Notably, the Vikings even assumed the prestigious role of the elite Varangian Guard, serving the Byzantine emperor. The impact of the Vikings on the cultures they encountered was profound, influencing virtually every facet of life. This influence was particularly pronounced in regions such as Scotland, Britain, France, and Ireland. In their expansive ventures, the Vikings undertook noteworthy feats, including the founding of Dublin, the colonization of Normandy, commonly referred to as the Land of the Northmen, in France, the establishment of the Danelaw in Britain, and the establishment of numerous settlements throughout Scotland. Dublin, founded by the Vikings, evolved into a significant trading hub and played a pivotal role in connecting Scandinavian trade routes with the broader European network. In Normandy, the Northmen left an enduring legacy, contributing to the cultural and social fabric of the region. The establishment of the Danelaw in Britain marked a period of Viking influence over a substantial portion of the country, impacting governance, law, and social structures. Throughout Scotland, Viking settlements emerged, contributing to the local communities and forging a lasting connection between Norse and Scottish cultures. The Vikings' multifaceted engagement with these regions went beyond mere conquest, shaping the course of history and fostering cultural exchanges that endure in the collective memory of Europe. The Viking legacy extended far beyond their exploits in Europe. Their settlements in Iceland and Greenland played a crucial role in disseminating Scandinavian culture across the North Atlantic, positioning them strategically for further exploration and colonization. This expansion marked a pivotal moment as the Vikings became the first Europeans to visit North America and establish communities. The archaeological site at Lonsau Meadows in Newfoundland stands as compelling evidence of early Viking settlement in North America, while ongoing debates persist about potential Viking habitation or visitation in other locations, ranging from Maine to Rhode Island and even further south. Contrary to popular imagery depicting Vikings as fearsome warriors adorned with horned helmets, historical accuracy dismisses this notion. Horned helmets would have been impractical in battle and were likely reserved for ceremonial purposes. It's essential to dispel the stereotype of Vikings solely as warriors, as their cultural impact and contributions were extensive. Despite their reputation for warfare, slaughter, and destruction, perpetuated by media portrayals, Scandinavian culture during the Viking Age was remarkably sophisticated. The Vikings' forays into exploration and trade, coupled with their cultural achievements, underscore the complexity of their civilization. Their societal structures, legal systems, and artistic expressions reflected a highly developed culture. The raids on other nations, while a notable aspect of Viking history, represent only one facet of a multifaceted civilization. As we delve into the intricacies of Viking culture, it becomes evident that their historical narrative is rich and diverse, encompassing not only seafaring warriors but also skilled traders, settlers, and contributors to the broader cultural tapestry of the regions they encountered. The etymology of the term, Viking, remains a subject of scholarly debate, with various perspectives shedding light on its possible origins. Professor Kenneth W. Harl subscribes to the conventional interpretation, suggesting that Viking is derived from the Norse word vik, signifying a cove or small fjord, a location ideal for pirates to conceal themselves and prey on merchant ships. Meanwhile, philologist Henry Sweet proposes that the term has its roots in the Old Norse word for pirate, as mentioned by Whitelock. Professor Peter Sawyer introduces an intriguing perspective, contending that the term likely stems from the region of Viken, situated alongside the Oslo fjord. According to Sawyer, Viken was strategically significant because it provided the Danes access to the iron produced in Norway. He postulates that if Viking originally referred to the inhabitants of Viken, it might explain why the English, and only they, adopted the term to describe Scandinavian pirates. England, being a natural target for those from Viken who sought exile as raiders, could have popularized the usage of the term. Sawyer goes on to emphasize that different cultures had distinct designations for these seafaring people, and Viking was exclusive to the English. In Irish records, they were referred to as pagans or simply foreigners, while the French called them Northmen. The Slavs identified them as the Russ, a term that contributed to the naming of Russia. In Germanic regions, they were known as Ashmen, acknowledging their use of ash wood for constructing their boats. This diversity in nomenclature across cultures underscores the complexity of the Viking phenomenon and highlights the regional nuances in perceptions of these seafaring individuals. The multifaceted nature of their identity is reflected not only in the variety of names bestowed upon them but also in the intricate web of cultural, economic, and geopolitical factors that shape their interactions with different societies. They employed the term themselves to describe a specific activity, armed raids on foreign territories with the intent of acquiring plunder. In Old Norse, the phrase, fara I Viking, conveyed a meaning distinct from embarking on a sea voyage for legitimate trade. Choosing to go Viking was a declaration of intent to participate in the undertaking of raiding lucrative targets in distant lands. This phrase encapsulated the essence of their martial expeditions, signaling a departure from routine maritime activities to engage in organized plunder and warfare. Their culture, deeply rooted in Scandinavian society, featured a hierarchical structure with three distinct classes: the jarls, aristocracy; carls, lower class; and thralls, slaves. While upward mobility was feasible for carls, thralls faced restricted opportunities. Notably, slavery was widespread in Scandinavia, and it is considered a significant motivator behind the Viking raids on other lands. In terms of gender dynamics, their society exhibited greater freedoms for women compared to many contemporary cultures. Women could inherit property, make independent choices about where and how to live if unmarried, represent themselves in legal matters, and own and manage their own businesses, including breweries, taverns, shops, and farms. Women held a unique religious role as prophetesses of either the goddess Freya or the god Odin, interpreting divine messages for the community. Interestingly, there were no male religious leaders. Marriages in their society were arranged by the men of the clan, with neither women nor men having the autonomy to choose their mates. Women's attire and jewelry mirrored those of men in their social class, and neither gender wore earrings, as such adornments were considered affectations of lesser races. While women were primarily responsible for child-rearing and household management, both men and women participated in meal preparation for the family. Occupationally diverse, Scandinavians engaged in farming, blacksmithing, armor crafting, brewing, trading, weaving, luthiery, crafting stringed instruments, drum making, poetry, music, carpentry, jewelry crafting, and various other professions. Trade, particularly in amber, a fossilized resin abundant in Scandinavia, was a major source of income. They traded amber, often worked into jewelry or sold in semi-processed form, with the Roman and Byzantine empires. Leisure and recreation were integral to their life. They participated in sports such as mock combat, wrestling, mountain climbing, swimming, javelin throwing, hunting, and the mysterious horse fighting. A field game called Natalik, similar to hockey, was also popular. Board games like dice, strategic games akin to chess, and chess itself provided entertainment. Contrary to the stereotypical image of Vikings as unrefined and savage, they placed great emphasis on personal hygiene and appearance. With trade connections to the east, Viking jarls adorned themselves in silk and expensive jewelry. They braided their hair, maintained grooming standards, and wore finely crafted cloaks, necklaces, and arm and wristbands. Cleanliness held both social and religious significance for them. It symbolized wealth and status, and it was also tied to their belief in Ragnarok, the apocalyptic event signifying the end of the world. They maintained short fingernails and toenails, as the unpaired nails of the deceased were believed to have contributed to building Nagfar, the ship associated with Ragnarok, hastening the inevitable end. The Norse worldview, deeply embedded in Scandinavian culture, centered around the idea that the end of the world, or Ragnarok, was inevitable, yet individuals could strive against it. The Norse gods, introduced to Scandinavia during the Germanic migrations around the beginning of the Bronze, were formidable deities who recognized the transient nature of their existence. They lived vigorously, and their followers were encouraged to embrace life with the same intensity. The primary sources detailing Norse religious beliefs include the Poetic Edda, reflecting oral traditions from the 9th and 10th centuries CE, and the Prose Edda, a collection of tales derived from older narratives. According to Norse creation mythology, the world emerged from the remains of the giant Ymir. Odin, Vili, and Ve, the offspring of Bor and Bestla, defeated Ymir and fashioned the world from his body. The first humans, Ask and Embla, were granted life, form, reason, and passion by the gods. The cosmos, envisioned as an immense tree named Yggdrasil, comprised 9 planes of existence. Notable realms included Midgard, home of mortals, Asgard, home of the gods, Alfheim, home of the elves, and Niflheim, situated beneath Midgard and reserved for those who died poorly. Heroic women, especially those perishing in childbirth, found eternal residence in the Hall of Frigg in Asgard, while men who died valiantly in battle joined Odin in Valhalla. The universe was structured on the principles of order by Odin and the gods, who overcame the frost giants residing in Jotunheim. However, a foreseen day of reckoning, Ragnarok, loomed in the future. During Ragnarok, the sun and moon would be devoured by wolves, Fenrir would rampage through Yggdrasil, and chaos would prevail. Heimdall's horn would signal the gods to battle, with Odin summoning heroes from Valhalla. Despite a valiant struggle, the gods would succumb, leading to the universe's destruction by flame and its submersion into primordial waters. Yet, this end marked not annihilation but renewal, as a new world would emerge, restarting the cyclical process. The Norse gods were venerated through the deeds of believers, with no evidence of a formal religious hierarchy before the advent of Christianity in Scandinavia. Women known as Valva, touched by the gods, could hear divine messages and serve as interpreters for mortals. While some temples were dedicated to the gods, worship predominantly occurred in natural settings associated with specific deities. The oral transmission of myths persisted until later recorded by the Icelandic historian and poet Snorri Sturluson. The Norse religious framework emphasized the cyclical nature of existence, the importance of individual actions, and the perpetual cycle of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Norse mythology significantly influenced Viking culture, contributing to their raids as the Viking way of life mirrored that of their gods. The Norse worldview valued bravery, with warriors venturing abroad to confront perceived chaotic and dangerous forces. The religious beliefs prevalent in the Mediterranean and Europe, centering around a single god and his savior son, along with the elaborate trappings of priests, churches, nuns, books, and rules for worship, appeared absurd and threatening to the Vikings. The Christian teachings lacked resonance with Norse ideology, and when Scandinavians, having mastered shipbuilding, embarked on Viking expeditions, they showed little mercy to Christian communities encountered during their raids. However, it's noteworthy that early Scandinavian settlers in foreign lands often adopted the new Christian faith. Carvings from Scandinavia dating back to 4000-2300 before the Common Era revealed knowledge of boat building, though these early vessels lacked keels and sails, making long-distance travel perilous. Shipbuilding advanced around 300 to 200 before the Common Era, influenced further by interactions with Roman traders and Celtic and Germanic merchants employing Roman technology between 200 to 400 before the Common Era. The Nidum ship, constructed in Denmark around 350 to 400 before the Common Era, represented the first vessel capable of navigating the sea easily, although it lacked a sail. Despite the technological advancements in shipbuilding, some Scandinavian traders established permanent communities in Europe well before this period, assimilating with Christian culture and abandoning the Norse gods and old religious practices. By 625 before the Common Era, West Germanic kinsmen of the Scandinavians had converted to Christianity, contributing to a parting of the ways between the Scandinavian heartland and the emerging Christian states in England, the Frankish world, and Frisia. This divergence was largely rooted in differences in religious understanding. While the Christian God was depicted as omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, the Norse gods had distinct areas of expertise and individual lives. The Norse worldview saw the universe teeming with gods, spirits, and supernatural energies, shaping a challenging world of adventure. In contrast, Christianity portrayed a world ruled by a single deity presiding over a fallen world of sin. This fundamental difference influenced how the Vikings interacted with the Christians they encountered during their raids. Although it would have been considered dishonorable for a Norse warrior to kill unarmed civilians and seize their possessions, the Vikings engaged in such actions during their raids between 793 to 1100 before the Common Era. The rules governing Viking society, which discouraged harming fellow Norse, did not apply to those outside their cultural and religious framework. The raid on Lindisfarne, where monks were murdered and valuables seized, exemplifies this shift in behavior. The monks, being non-Norse and following a different belief system, were viewed as impediments to wealth acquisition, and the Christian god's perceived inability to protect his followers reinforced the Vikings' perception of the vulnerability of Christian communities during their raids. The Viking raids on Christian communities, akin to the Huns' incursions into the Roman Empire centuries earlier, were perceived by European Christians as a manifestation of God's wrath for their sins. In Britain, Alfred the Great implemented educational reforms to improve his people and appease God. Baptism into Christianity became a prerequisite in treaties with the Vikings, exemplified when Alfred defeated Guthrum's Viking army at the Battle of Edington, leading to Guthrum's baptism and conversion. In France, Charlemagne pursued a forceful Christianization campaign against the Scandinavians, destroying Norse sacred sites and framing Christianity as the enemy faith of a hostile people. Some historians argue that Charlemagne's actions were a primary motivator for Viking raids, but this claim overlooks earlier raids in Britain and Ireland. Nevertheless, Charlemagne's efforts contributed to Scandinavian resistance to Christianity, fostering animosity and division. During the early Viking Age, sea raiders evolved from pirates into formidable armies under charismatic leaders. They conquered territories, established communities, and eventually assimilated with local populations. Legendary Norse leaders such as Halfdan Ragnarsson, Ivar the Boneless, Guthrum, Harald Bluetooth, Sven Forkbeard, Canute the Great, and Harald Hardrada played pivotal roles. Notable explorers like Eric the Red and Leif Erikson settled in Greenland and North America. The Viking Age is commonly considered to have ended around 1066 before the Common Era with Harald Hardrada's death at the Battle of Stamford Bridge, although Viking raids persisted beyond this date. The Christianization of Scandinavia in the 10th and 11th centuries significantly contributed to the era's conclusion. The Norse religion, the last major pagan belief system to succumb to Christianity, lost its allure for embarking on Viking expeditions. The Vikings left an indelible mark on the cultures they encountered, influencing architecture, language, infrastructure, poetry, place names, military practices, and various aspects of daily life, including food and clothing. Often portrayed as marauding heathens in medieval texts, by the early 20th century, they were romanticized as noble savages, a perception that endures today. In reality, the Vikings were a cultured and sophisticated warrior class who, driven by their religious beliefs, engaged in raiding for personal gain, perceiving it as a high-stakes endeavor with much to gain and little to lose. As we bid farewell to the Vikings and their world, let these artifacts and landscapes stand as silent sentinels, guardians of a chapter in history that will forever be etched in the collective memory of humanity. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey. Your support and curiosity have fueled this exploration into the heart of the Viking civilization, and we hope it has ignited a passion for history within you. To continue unraveling the mysteries of the past and embark on future adventures together, make sure to like this video if you found it informative, share it with fellow enthusiasts who share your love for history, and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you become part of a community dedicated to preserving and celebrating the rich tapestry of our shared human heritage. Let the echoes of the Vikings resonate through time, and may your journey through history be as exciting as the sagas we've uncovered today.